What a season it's been so far. 17 games in, and Tottenham Hotspur are 1 point away from Manchester City. The top four of the title race hasn't been this exciting in about 5 or 6 years since it's been this whole Man City and Liverpool two-horse race, it's felt like. But the top four in the title race is wide open, and a big part of that is Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. And as we come into January, looking at where Tottenham's sitting, 1 point behind Man City. Over December, Tottenham are going to play 3 more games, Man City 2. At the halfway point of the Premier League season, Tottenham could be ahead of Man City, despite all the injuries they've had to James Maddison, Van de Ven, Harry Kane being out the door. It's been, everything's kind of went against Tottenham, but everything is still kind of moving in the right direction. This January transfer window, there is no room for error. Ange has already said some of the areas he's looking to reinforce in the squad, and some of the players that we've seen play for Tottenham this year clearly aren't up to scratch as well, so we do expect some outgoings. But in the video today, we'll be talking about the key incomings that Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham have to make in January if they're going to maintain this top 4 push that they're making this year against all the odds. At any point in the video, if you laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel. We are pushing for 10,000 subscribers, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. So if you enjoy the content here, hit subscribe for more, hit the like button, and get into the comment section and let me know if you could buy one player for Tottenham, who would it be and why? And let's just get stuck straight into it. So this is the Tottenham squad as we find it at the moment. Over the last 3 games, the last 4 matches, we've seen more and more of these tertiary players actually get onto the pitch. We can see where Ange thinks they might play a role for him in the short, immediate term at the very least. Some of these guys, but I think, have stepped up in a big way, like Lo Celso, for example. Whenever I watch Lo Celso for Tottenham, he just looks like the Argentinian Aaron Moy. I think Ange is a big fan of his strength, his composure, his technique, his decision-making on the ball. And overall, I think he's really bought into the system, and I think Lo Celso is definitely a bedded-in kind of squad player here. But outside of that, the rest of these guys in blue, the kind of second string, don't really feel up to scratch and are only really being used in must-win, backs against the wall, no other option going. Like Ollie Skip, for example, doesn't really offer anything at this level in this type of team, and the more Ange and Tottenham can minimise the minutes that he's required for, the better. Of course, the recent injury to Bentancur doesn't help with that. And Højbjerg, who I've been quite impressed with, by the way, doesn't seem to be in the plans. He's always linked away, kind of really throughout the season, even when he has been playing and featuring. The links kind of went away for a week or two, but then when he drops back out the team, the agent's back out on Twitter, or whatever's going on. So I do think Højbjerg is probably going to go in January. We do expect Van de Ven and Maddison are both going to return in January, which will make a big difference to the quality of this Tottenham squad. But the likes of Davies and Dyer, these guys, again, we need to have, if Tottenham are going to maintain top 4 and even think about something even grander, really need to minimise their minutes in crucial games other than like rest and rotation against, cup opposition and that sort of thing. So in the midfield and in the defence here, there's just a few holes to be plugged in the squad to give it that kind of top 4 feel where it can, ride out a few injuries, a wee suspension or two, because it seems to always be somebody suspended as well at this point for Tottenham, and, be able to keep the strength of the starting 11 is as high as possible. But in attack, it's a bit different because Tottenham haven't really been free scoring all of this season. There's been 1 or 2 games that have been real outliers, but generally Tottenham are not scoring more than 2 goals a game. Son, Kulusevski's reinvention in the number 10 role here with Brennan Johnson in the wide area to support Richarlison has been working out pretty well and might give Richarlison a kind of second lease on life under Ange. It did feel like he'd had his chance and it maybe went away. I know Ange had kind of backed him quite vehemently in the press, like personally, because I know he's been going through some personal struggles and stuff like that, but he's not really an Ange out-and-out player. But it does feel like he's had a workaround and they've managed to get a system working. And really, if you take the deadwood out of this, like the Sessegnons, the Davies, the Dyers, Skip, even Heel, I was really excited. I was hopeful Heel would kick on. I've not really seen that much of him, to be honest with you, but equally I'm not hearing more and more people saying, oh yeah, Heel's a solution. But I'm quite happy to leave him here now. It's just kind of jury's still out. And Veliz doesn't seem to be much better than playing 10 to 5 to 2 minutes a match. So I do feel that in attack here, there is definitely a lot more room for bodies. I do feel that Solomon is an Ange signing, similar to Van de Ven and Maddison. So when he is fit and available, he has a place in this squad for me, and it is going to be on that left-hand side, probably supporting Son. So the clear area, if you've got Johnson, Kulusevski can come back out here as well, where Maddison's fit. It's only really this area of the pitch that is really lacking. It's goals, it's strikers, it's guys that can play the Ange system and put the ball in the back of the net. Son has had a bit of a shot up here, but it's not really worked out. And Richarlison, like I've already mentioned, is kind of now getting a bit of a tune out of it. Been kind of surprised Kulusevski's not had a shot in this role. Maybe he will when Maddison's back. I wouldn't totally rule that out. Now, the biggest problem is always going to be the hardest one to solve, so we'll probably come to that last. The easiest one, I think, or the one that's the most obvious, Ange is already in the press saying that they're worried, they're nervous that something else happens to another defender before they can get to January and re-recruit. And as we look at the squad here, like, you know, if we were to add in the Davies and the Dyers and whatever, and the Sessignons, there is like decent, like 2 players per position. And when Van de Ven and Romero are both fit, they're probably going to be first choice, along with Udogie and Porro, who feel pretty bought into this system. But you do need someone who's versatile, who can cover a few different positions, and you need someone who is first team capable, got experience at a high level of European football, and you know, you've got enough data and enough of a track record to know what they could add into this team. And for me, if you're keeping yourself around all the kind of the rumour mills and the late situations around players who are itching for a move or settled at a club or whatever, the number one player for me that Tottenham have to go out and reinforce their defence with is Piero Hincapié. Now, this guy has got a lot of fanboys across world football because he is an amazing left-footed centre-back. You know, he can play in a back 3, can kind of play a left-back and a back 4. Very versatile. I could see him playing in this inverted full-back position for Ange very successfully. But he ticks all the boxes for everything that Ange would need in a reinforcement for the defence here. The versatility, the on-pitch IQ, the age profile, and most importantly, in January, the availability. Piero Hincapié has already indicated that he is very unhappy with his very limited minutes at a very successful Bayer Leverkusen team. I've previously on this channel said that Tottenham should be going out for the likes of Kosunu Odilon or Tapsoba, the main defenders at Leverkusen. But Leverkusen might go and win the league this year themselves, and they're doing pretty well in the Europa League. And those guys are keeping Hincapié out. You're not going to get them in January, but you could get Hincapié, and I think he would be pretty buzzing to come to the Premier League and be a really important part of this Tottenham Hotspur team that is pushing for top 4 and maybe even greater things in time to come. Now, according to Transfermarkt, Piero Hincapié has a market value right now of 35 million euros, which Tottenham definitely have that type of money in for a player that really can add in the versatility and the quality and, you know, pushing in for the top 4, you know, which is really the main thing Tottenham should be pushing for at the moment. 1 point currently behind Manchester City. This is an unbelievable position that someone like Hincapié could definitely help Tottenham's cause in a big, big way. So far this season, these are his scores out of 100 for his performances for his games for Leverkusen. But what I find the most eye-catching about this is when we actually scroll through it and look at his matches, you can see even this season under Xabi Alonso, he is featuring regular enough, but he's playing in a variety of positions. Like I've mentioned, centre-back, left mid in a kind of 3-5-2, really smart kind of shape in Europa League, that kind of thing. And it's that versatility, it's that on-pitch IQ that I know Ange is a really big fan of, and at this tippy-top, nosebleed, elite level of football in defence, you absolutely need. Now, to help plug in some of those gaps in midfield, now I do feel that with the likes of Lo Celso, Maddison, Bissouma Sarr, etc., that even Kulusevski's versatility to come in there, the attacking depth that Tottenham have in midfield is there for all to see. Any midfield reinforcements that would come in would be like just putting the likes of Skip and Højbjerg really just out of the picture. Someone else who could fill that void, so then when like, the likes of Bentancur are fit, and you know, whoever else, it's not competition in those positions. There's already enough competition there. You need someone who can maybe play a bit deeper. And again, very similar to some of the other signings Ange has made for Celtic, for Yokohama, for Tottenham. He likes players that are up and coming, that are developing. And one of the real shining lights that we've seen in the UEFA Champions League this year was the arrival of Arthur Vermeeren, who, is a Belgium youth international playing for Antwerp, who won the division last year. So a guy that's got a league winner's medal around his neck in his rookie season last year when he was 17. But he's played Champions League football this year, and Antwerp weren't that great, but he was very, very good. And Antwerp weren't that far away from a bit of an upset in their group in terms of qualification. This is the sort of player that could come in and help Tottenham actually a little bit this year. Definitely couldn't be a first team player, but is the sort of transfer that you have to make when he's moving. If this guy is on the move in January or in the summer and he goes to, you know, one of the big continental teams or one of the traditional kind of top 4 clubs over the last 2 or 3 seasons, it will be seen by Tottenham as a huge opportunity miss, because with the versatility in all of Tottenham's midfield, as soon as you take Højbjerg out of there, there's not anyone that's really that out-and-out defensive minded that you can plug in for different game situations or depending on the availability of others, kind of, you know, move the squad around and whatever. And I think he really just ticks those boxes because he's so young. He's got such a huge ceiling. So even if you were to pay a big transfer fee for him, give the guy a long contract, this guy's, got a very high ceiling. I can't say that enough. So it makes a lot of sense, adds into the squad balance, and doesn't really put too much pressure on, first team places in the sense that where it might upset the likes of Sarr or Basuma or, and these other more key vital guys. Because as we know with Ange, he likes his best 11. He likes his first 11 and he likes regular subs to just reinforce it. And that's what I'm kind of thinking about when I'm going through this here. How does Ange really see the picture falling out? I do think he fancies both his right wingers, both his left wingers. The striker position, like we've already mentioned, we'll come to that in a second. But in midfield, I think he likes Basuma, he likes Sarr, he likes Bentancur, Lo Celso, Maddison. There's 5 guys he really likes. I think Ange likes to have 6 or 7. And I think if you're to put a wee Vermeeren in here, I think these 2 players, if you were to spend a combined 70 million on or something like that, would definitely make a whole difference to these leaky gaps that we've got further back in the team. Now, there's definitely more business to be done, but this is January. The business is limited. And when we get to the sharp end of the pitch here, up into the goal scorers, this is really where the speed bump comes for me. Ange and Tottenham are going to go down one of 2 routes, in my opinion, to try and reinforce the goal-scoring outlet of the team, to try and get more goals out of the team between now and the rest of the season. Victor Osimhen has just signed a new contract with a minimum fee on it of 130 million, and I genuinely think to replace Harry Kane, that's the level of striker Tottenham should seriously be in the market for, but you're not going to get that level of player in January, especially with Osimhen just signing that deal, and anyone else around Europe that is of that calibre, still fighting for titles, or still in knockout rounds of European competition, etc. So there's not that many obvious candidates that could make a January move. So failing a shock, I think there's only one of 3 outcomes that we could see for Tottenham supplementing, their attack force. The first one, which I think is probably the least likely, is like an old school Tottenham transfer where you go and buy someone else from within the Premier League that you can maybe get for 20, 30 million quid. You've maybe got enough data on, the Premier League ready, and when you go and buy somebody better later on, you don't really care if you're going to upset them or not. It's not like a guy you've invested a lot of hopes as well as money into. And, I'm a bit biased, but when I look around the Premier League, I think somebody like Matthias Cunha, Odsonne Edouard, guys like this fit the kind of profile well enough. Edouard probably is just getting up to speed, and then he suffered a wee bit injury prone, maybe something you wouldn't look at. And Cunha, honestly, if he could finish, he would be on like 10 or 15 goals this year. But he's very Ange-like in terms of he likes his press, he's very good with link-up play, that kind of thing. I don't think Tottenham fans would be excited about that. I don't think a transfer like that would get the job done. But like I said, the superstar, the Osimhen level transfer isn't really on the cards in January from within Europe. But if you look from out with Europe, who are the biggest emerging talents that are available in this window? And for me, the number one guy, you just need to look at the success that we've seen of somebody like Julian Alvarez or Enzo Fernandez when they've moved across the Atlantic basically. And Man City did very well to get Julian Alvarez in first before he went to like Benfica or something, like Enzo Fernandez did before arriving at Chelsea. Chelsea having to pay a lot of money for him. The next guy I see that kind of thing happening with is Thiago Almada. Now, the World Cup winner, played like 1 game at the World Cup or something like that, but was in the squad. Is a very, very exciting attacking midfielder, left forward, loves a set piece, got a wand of a left foot on him. And this is a guy that a lot of European clubs are looking at, but no one's really, taking the plunge with. I don't think this guy really out and out solves the Richarlison factor, if you get me. But if you were to move him onto the left-hand side for the rest of this season alongside Son, and then you've got Son to supplement Richarlison for the rest of this season, then you get to the summer and do any significant moves, move Richarlison on, bring someone else in, and then the squad is finessed ever so slightly in that regard. That would get the job done for me this year, probably. But what I think might actually happen is Ange does go out into the January transfer window to try and buy goals. And as I'm looking around European football, there's just one name I'm looking at that I cannot avoid that I think Ange is going to go after, probably in the January transfer window, and that is one of 2 Celtic players, but I'm going to land on Kyogo Furuhashi because I think Kyogo is proven in his Champions League outings, and Ange obviously knows him very, very well, that for the last 20, 30 minutes of a Premier League match, start the odd one here and there, he can play Ange ball very, very well, and he is a clinical finisher. He can actually put the ball in the back of the net in that type of system. If it wasn't Kyogo, it might be Daisen Maeda, who never played centre-forward for Celtic, but did play centre-forward for Yokohama under Ange, and plays ahead of Kyogo for Japan at the World Cup, and like now is centre-forward. And again, Daisen Maeda, but isn't really that. He's not got that much technique or finesse. I really doubt he would be able to score the goals and produce the end product at Premier League level that probably Kyogo would. Both of them have just signed huge contracts at Celtic for the next 4 or 5 years. I termed it at the time Ange-proofing them. because Ange, you signed 2 guys for Celtic from Yokohama. I would be very surprised if he didn't try and sign someone from Celtic, especially in January, to supplement the Tottenham team just for depth. I do really like the look of Almada in this squad, especially if Ange and Tottenham believe that Valise has a bit of a future. Then that's a bit of a connection that could have, you know, a lot of legs. And equally, like this season, it gives you the ability to play Almada out here, and maybe Son can play in this area a bit more if the game doesn't suit Richarlison or if he's not available or whatever. I'd like to say, if this player behind Richarlison, if you are going to stick with him for most of the season, because he is getting in form, he is clearly a Premier League goal scorer, and he is now starting to fit into the Ange system, and having Kyogo to supplement him, because he's got a lot of energy from the bench, you know, I think that makes the attack a lot more dangerous throughout the full 90 minutes. What Maeda would probably allow you to do, Maeda could start more games for Tottenham for me, probably, than Kyogo, because his mega press, just the way he can press across the back line, really does open up huge avenues for other players in Ange's system. And Ange might see that as a key activator at this level that he currently doesn't have in Son or Richarlison. So I'm quite split on who he might come for, but I've got a feeling that in January there'll be a player moving from Celtic to Tottenham. Let me know what you think about all the targets we've looked at in this video, and is there someone I've missed out that you are thinking, Quinny, this guy has to sign for Tottenham in January. He is the perfect player to help them on for the rest of this season. I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. On screen now is a couple of other things that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.